Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Golden's Guide to Divorce. We're here in the beautiful Bronx studios. Thank you so much for hosting us. And I have a special guest with us today. Her name is Pat Love, and yes, that is her real name. I'm sure she gets that off all the time, but isn't that incredible to have a name like Love? Let me tell you a little bit about her. I'm so excited to have her here. We had a conversation a few days ago, and I met her through another therapist friend of mine, and they've known each other for a very long time. And I haven't met her in person, but I certainly hope to. Her name is Pat Love, and she is known for her warmth and her humor. She is very funny, and her research-based wisdom. Her work has been featured on TV, online, and in magazines. She's a distinguished professor, a therapist, and a long-standing member, approved supervisor in the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy. Yeah, she is like a top dog therapist, and I'm so lucky to have her here. She's authored 6 books, done tons of workshops, and basically traveled around the world sharing her wisdom. She is also a doctor of education in counseling, and Dr. Love is a tenure associate professor at Texas A&M. Wow. With that, welcome, Dr. Pat Love.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What an introduction. Oh,
Well,
I was reflecting on how hard it is to be humorous over Zoom. You know, a lot easier when it's in person. But what is it they say when you're on Zoom and you try to be funny, you're not even remotely funny?
Oh, well.
So, you know.
Well, I will say when we talked on the phone the other day, I thought you were very funny. So I love a therapist who has a lot of humor. I've met some
Actually,
therapists.
every person I've ever, officed with over the years, at some point has complained that there's too much laughter coming from my office.
Well, I think that's a good thing. I've met a few therapists lately that could use some lessons in humor. So, I wanted to get in today. Thank you so much for being here. I probably am going to want to have you back because I have so much I'd love to talk to you about. And I know in our previous conversation, there is a lot to talk about. And for me, I like to call you one of those deep therapists, I got the sense very quickly that you knew how to take someone straight in pretty easily. And I know you've been doing this a long time, so of course you do. I'm new in my podcast. I think this is episode number 7. But as you know, I've been doing my journey on camera and being very transparent about where I am in the divorce process. And also, I've talked a lot about feelings on here because I do really believe that it's so important to deal with them or they deal with you, right? So I kind of wanted to start there. There's this idea of feel your feelings. How would you define that? What does that mean, really? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, it's almost a no-brainer, right? I mean, you feel the feelings because they come on us. It's now, there's some evidence that thoughts cause feelings, but also context can cause feelings. Something can remind you of a time when you realize, oh my, I'm getting a divorce. You can be having a very good day, and then all of a sudden someone walks in a red shirt, and you feel flooded with emotion, and you have all kinds of strong feelings or sensations, and you don't even know why. Well, that's the context, because your partner had on a red shirt the day he or she said, I'm leaving, or we need to get a divorce, or I don't want to be married anymore. I don't want to be with you anymore. So feelings come on us, right? And I have colleagues that actually put a YouTube clip of me on YouTube that I didn't even know was going to be there, and it got a lot of attention because it says feel the feelings but do the right thing. And what does that mean? Well, first of all, you can feel anything you want to feel, but you can't act in any way you want to act and still be in a relationship, right?
Right.
And so behavior is very different than feelings. And once we have a feeling, we really can choose how to manage that feeling. The single greatest predictor of maturity, of happy, stable relationships, of basically being happy and content in your own life, whether you're married, divorced, with somebody, not with somebody, is the ability to manage, to regulate those feelings. And so many of us grew up in situations that made regulating our feelings much, much more difficult because we didn't have models of adults regulating their own feelings in a way that they could attune to us and be there for us and give us the nurturing and the support that we needed. So we didn't have those models. So we have to learn to feel the feeling, do the right thing. Well, what is the right thing? Well, the right thing is whatever is in line with your best self, your core values. And I often get this question because I work with couples or I work with relationship issues almost exclusively. And I get this question, well, why should I be nice to them when they're not nice to me? And I say, here's the answer. Here's the reason. Because you feel better about yourself when you do the right thing.
Right.
And the right thing is what is in line with your core values, your best self, the person that really makes you you.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense, Deborah?
It does. And I think that we've kind of gotten a little out of control, or we certainly haven't understood the full process, because everybody now says feel your feelings, but a lot on one side of the spectrum, for many of us, like when I grew up, I wasn't allowed to feel anything, right? It was like, oh, well,
Right.
cry, I'll give you something to cry about, and then on
Right.
the other side, like I even think about in my relationship, if I said I want to tell you how I feel, it would sometimes the anger or the disappointment or the whatever would come in, and then all hell would break loose, So
Right.
I think that is, and I did watch that video on YouTube. I would highly suggest watching that video. Feel your feelings and do the right thing. It's really brilliant, Dr. Love, and just the idea of thinking through the process. I also wanted to say it's not just with our exes. Like not long ago, a friend of mine and I were talking, and something happened, and I wanted to share my feelings with her, and I was angry, and it went off the rails too. So there's a big gap between us feeling them and, like you said, understanding how to deliver it without it being brutal, mean, or I guess you can't always have anything to, I guess you can't control someone else getting triggered, but this is a big thing.
Well, first of all, we have mirror neurons that enable us to feel what other people are feeling. So if you're with somebody who's reactive, meaning highly upset, very angry, resentful, fearful, anxious, fill in the blank, you're going to feel that. And that's why this ability to regulate or manage your own emotions is so important. If you read all the research on the definition of mental health, it will boil down to this: the ability to cheer yourself up or calm yourself down, no matter what is happening, ultimately. And that doesn't mean you never get angry, you never get, disappointed or resentful. It doesn't mean you don't grieve or mourn or be sad or, lose it. It means ultimately you can bring yourself back to a cognitive, rational state. And this is why, if you're going to share your feelings, strong feelings, you have to sort of make an appointment and ask the other person, are you in a place to receive my strong feelings? Because, and we all might think, yes, we are, but wow, when it hits us, we've got to manage our own emotions and then be able to attune or tune in or to be receptive or receive the message the other person is sending. That is a very, very complex process.
I agree.
And that's why, and that's why with most relationships, you have to make it an appointment or at least say, are you in a place to receive this?
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's hard too, like when you're in therapy and maybe you can speak to this and, one person is sharing their feelings and the other person is sitting there listening and validating. And then eventually it'll be your turn. But sometimes you're just so triggered by what you just heard from someone else, by the way they feel. It's so hard to stay in the correct brain to be able to even mirror it back.
Right. That's why it's so important to have somebody who understands this process to be the third person, because if it's a very intense conversation, covering new ground, managing highly volatile emotions, to do that back to back really cancels each other. And this is why you probably need some time. Years ago, I quit trying to do 50-minute or 1-hour sessions with couples because personally, with highly conflicted couples or couples who are in a really tough place, 1 hour a week is it's not effective. And I think at times can be even ineffective. So I would always work in chunks of time with relationship issues, because then you can get to a finishing place. Because when you do back-to-back intense conversations, it's more like a tit for tat or
it's like playing
argument.
Tennis, isn't it?
It is.
I mean,
it's like yes, but, and that's why if it's a really serious issue, you do give it the honor and the space and the time and the respect it deserves, and not then expect that person to be able to zip themselves up and come back. It's, in fact, what you're describing, I call the shoot reload method. You're shooting your words while I'm reloading mine.
Exactly.
And I'm not really listening. Yeah, you're just planning. To you. I'm reloading.
Yes, you're just planning what you're going to say next. So
yes, exactly.
That whole idea about being curious and in that mode goes straight out the window. I think this is so important. And what you just said, trying to hear two people's volatile feelings in an hour is bull crap. Y'all, just let me say that.
I'm telling you.
And it's I've tried it, and it's very hard to talk about deep anger, deep resentment, deep rage, deep sadness, and then, okay, your turn, because people are just continuing just to react. So I think that's
what's just as bad or worse, Deborah, is time's up. And then the couple or the individual is put out of the office in deep pain and vulnerable. And where do you go with those feelings? You got to stop on the way home for the grocery and you're sobbing in the grocery aisle,
Or you're fighting
seriously.
or you're fighting on the way out.
Yes. Right,
or
exactly.
you're
Yes.
worse when you
Yeah.
left than when you came in, and that's happened to me.
Yes.
And it hadn't been that long ago.
Oh,
I'm hoping everybody's
I
really
know.
listening to this. You need to find a therapist that is really going to, not take your money and do 50 minutes and try to do deep work. It cannot be done.
Yeah.
Therapists
Yeah.
without integrity might do that, but listen to Dr. Love. This is really important. And sometimes, like in my situation, I think it made it worse. So,
I have to just say one thing. I know it's difficult for some therapists because they take insurance and it's complicated, and their center requires them to work in the 1 hour block. And I had the luxury of being in private practice and being able to work that way. But I have to say, with relationships, my clients loved it and really got it, that if you can work through some type of resolution, there's a natural finishing place. And it doesn't mean everything's finished, but there is a natural organic process that's very healing if you can follow it.
I agree. And if there's enough time there for someone to actually be able to digest and have a minute to think about it and let it land, and
Yes.
and not do the batting back and forth.
Yes.
I think that's.
And also, Deborah, you made a really good point I want to emphasize, and that is, the difference if you are, pouring your heart out to someone you care about. And if they're truly attuned to you, it feels different than if they're reloading what they're going to send to you. It feels different when someone's truly attuned.
Right.
And that takes time and relaxation and attention.
I think those are just amazing things that you're telling our listeners, because that happens not even in therapy. I mean, you can be just having a conversation with someone, and I can actually see when they're reloading. I mean, they're not listening to anything I
Yes.
say. They're preparing for, and it doesn't even have to be an argument. It's like,
No.
you're not you really didn't hear what I said. You're just anxious. And sometimes it's about people being excited and wanting to share, and I understand that. But
Yes.
it goes back to none of us, I shouldn't say none of us, but so many of us don't know how to be present or are learning to be present for others.
Well, let me just give you the 4 criteria for being present, because you're bringing this up and it's very different, because 2 monologues do not equal a dialogue, right?
Amen.
So what is it? So what does it mean to be present? Number 1, the person has to truly show up, and that means they have to be there. Now, it could be video, it could be by the phone, whatever, but this is a person that has to show up in the bad times as well as the good times. If you want an attachment figure, if you want someone with whom you can build trust, they got to show up. They got to be there. But not only when they're there, are they just there physically? They have to tune into you. Now, that sounds simple, but that means I have to regulate my own emotions and thoughts to the level that I can focus on you. I can truly be listening, not just hearing. We're always hearing. We don't have earlids. We're hearing even when we're asleep. Listening is your brain saying, this is important. This means something to you. Pay attention. So tune in is the second criteria. The third criteria for somebody to build trust and really be an attachment figure is that they have tuned in long enough that they understand you. I use the term validation. I use understand, because validation, there's no dictionary in which you look up the definition of validation that it doesn't say agree. See, and I don't think I have the right to ask you to agree with me all the time. But as my friend or my partner, I do think I have the right to ask you to at least understand my point of view.
Right.
And that requires showing up, tuning in, so that you can really understand someone. And then number 4, to build trust, that person's behavior has to be congruent with their understanding of you.
Right.
And that, so if I know you're allergic to roses and that's incongruent, right? So my behavior has to prove to you that I understand you and I've been tuning in.
Right. Oh my gosh, those are great. I think I'm going to put those in the show notes for everyone. And I think it circles all the way back to it's really about working on yourself enough to be present, right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I also wanted to talk about that's a good introduction to, when we're trying to tell our feelings to other people. But when we're working with, let's say I got really triggered by a conversation and I knew it was not appropriate to engage or say anything or for whatever reason. And I get home, maybe it was a call with my ex or whatever, and I got triggered or a discussion. And when we're talking about dealing with our feelings, feeling our feelings, how would you describe the best way to work with your feelings on your own so you can actually move through them and get to the place where you want to be?
Well, first of all, you might want to practice or understand, have you been triggered by archaic feelings, okay, or triggered by a current unresolved issue or something that was hurtful that was said to you? And clients, I often put my hands up like this and have my clients put their hands and say, how much of this comes from history and how much of it is about now? And I think it's important when you have strong feelings, especially if it feels reoccurring, ask yourself this question. Okay. And sometimes it helps to close your eyes and just go back, all the way back to the earliest time you could ever remember feeling anything even remotely like this. And I often say to my clients, don't try to make it make sense. Just free associate. And I say, when you have a memory or a picture, just nod your head and open your eyes and tell me about it. And they'll often say, well, I don't think this makes sense, but, and they tell me a story that, makes perfect sense, because we get triggered from our history as well as our present. And when you overreact or have what we call an abreaction, or you get flooded and even paralyzed with these feelings, it's often triggering an archaic memory. There are memories, there are explicit memories, and explicit memory is if I say, Deborah, what'd you have for breakfast? And you can say, you can recall the either egg you ate or oatmeal, or you didn't have breakfast, or you only had coffee, whatever. But that was then, this is now. But then there are implicit memories that come with sensations only and no recall. And all you know is something happened and you're furious, or something happened and you feel 3 years old, or you feel vulnerable, or you feel shameful, or you feel angry, whatever it is. And that's probably an implicit memory that got triggered by the context or the tone or your history. Mm-hmm. It's history repeating itself. And once you go, oh, wait, that's my mom's stuff, or that's my brother's stuff, or, and this is why, therapy is really important, because a good therapist can help you separate these and get a handle on it. And you don't get hijacked by your own feelings. And it doesn't mean you get rid of feelings. You never want to get rid of them, because they're there for your protection and your enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want to be hijacked by them.
That is that phrase right there, it happens to all of us all day long, every day. We get hijacked by our feelings, and what a great morning could turn into an awful evening. And that's hijacked by our feelings. That is, I'm going to have to write that one down. I'll really have to think about that one.
Well, also, once that cortisol gets in your system, you get a hangover from it. I mean, it just stays, and then you can start ruminating, and I
Is
mean,
that it?
but
Is that why you feel so bad after you've had an anger or
yes,
rage attack?
yes. Oh, it's a hangover. You get a cortisol hangover. You wanna see what cortisol does to you? Google adrenal fatigue. Just Google that. And you just go, oh my goodness, you know? And so, yeah, it really is a chemical exhaustion that can happen, and you're vulnerable during that time. And I sound like a poster child for good therapy,
Well, you are.
but
I
this is
mean, no,
where,
you're a poster
but this
child
is
for
this.
good therapists, yes. And you know what? I just want to
Yeah.
add, most of the listeners know this, and I don't remember if I mentioned it to you, but um, you are describing exactly what happened to me 5 months ago. I was so hijacked by my feelings, by the separation, by the moving, by the stress of everything. My dog was having a hard time. I was in a new place, and I had a stress heart attack. And that's exactly what they said, was that it was all the bad hormones like cortisol and all the other ones all at one time hit my heart, and I actually had a heart attack. And it's called Takotsuba. There's a name for it, also known as broken heart syndrome. But it is just the same as a heart attack. So this is the reason why it's so important for us to find a way to, as you said, self-soothe. I love that word, because we were never, most of us were never taught how to do that when we were children. And so there's always, I guess, an ongoing learning how to self-soothe. And now the reason I love talking about feelings on this show now is because not only do that, I recognize the importance of how unhappy they can make you if you don't deal with them, but how sick they can make you.
Yes, yes.
So I think
You're making such a good point. Thank you. Yes.
so anyway, sidetrack there. Well, we're running close to time. God, I could talk to you all day. Please say you'll come back.
Thank
But
you. Thank you.
I did want to ask, maybe the last question and anything you want to share about this. I think for women going through divorce, particularly, 50 plus, there is a lot of shame and guilt, and there is a feeling of failure. And I can speak for myself on that, but I've talked to a lot of other women. What would you say? How would you encourage women who are just really feeling the shame and the guilt, not quite sure what to do with all that?
Yeah. You know, it wasn't that many short centuries ago that, the average age was 35. And so it wasn't that hard to be mated for life. Because life was shorter. Forever after is a lot longer than it used to be. So, just practically speaking, let's be realistic. And if you think about the chances of finding one person, and that really, you both want to stay in the same relationship for a lifetime, which is a long, long time now. One of the fastest growing groups in the US are the centenarians who are living past 100. And it's not just women anymore, it's also men. So if you just look at your life, from a distance. I have a girlfriend that says, before you get upset about something, ask yourself this question: can you spot it from an airplane at 30,000 feet? Because if you can't spot it from an airplane at 30,000 feet, maybe you shouldn't get all that worked up about it. But here's the point: guilt is corrective. Guilt occurs when your beliefs and your behaviors don't line up. Okay, so you have three choices. You can change your behavior, But the problem is if one person wants a divorce, whether you want one or not, you're going to get one. You may delay it, but you're going to get one,
Right.
right? So you can't always, you can change your behavior, but it may not change the situation. Okay, so you can change your behavior, or you can change your beliefs and said, if your belief is I should never get divorced or I'm a bad person, you can change that belief. Again, you can say, it's not my first choice. I wish it had succeeded. I wish it would turn out different, but it's not awful. And I'm not a bad person, because guilt is, like I say, is corrective. You can change your behavior, you can change your beliefs, or you can just keep on doing it and feel guilty.
Right.
And most people, after they feel guilty, then have a payoff, and it usually isn't pretty. So shame, though, is something different. And shame is about you as a person. And if you are really feeling like a bad person, I would say, get a good therapist, get a good coach, get somebody who can help you with that. And you don't have to sign up for life. I mean, I think the average number of sessions people go is maybe 8, So you don't have to do this, and you can do it online, because you don't want to live with shame. Because most people believe I did the best I could do, given the information I had, given the situation, and it may not be my first choice. I mean, if I had it to do over, I would never have gotten divorced. If I could have chosen, right? If I could go back and rewrite history, my life would have been simpler. My children's life would have been simpler. My grandchildren's life would have been simpler. I don't think any of us really want to choose that as a lifestyle, but to beat up on ourselves helps no one. And it's unkind, and it's not in our best interest, and it's not who we want to be. So I would say, figure out your core values. If the way you can build self-esteem, if you feel like a failure, here's the simplest way to do it. Figure out your core values. I say 2 or 3. What the values that make you you. Are you a kind person? Are you a supportive person? Are you a friendly person? Are you a fun person? Whatever your core values are, those values you admire in others. And then at the end of the day, ask yourself, Pat, how was I kind today? How was I fun today? How was I supportive today? And you have to have an answer for that. Because if you don't have an answer to how was I supportive today, then that's not a value. That is an ideal. And the way to build self-esteem, the way to feel like a success in life, is to get your life and your behavior in line with your core values. And I think that's the best advice I can give you long term.
Get your life and your behavior in line. I got to write this down, Dr. Pat. Get your life and your behavior in line with your core values. Are y'all hearing this? Oh my gosh.
Because, people are going to like you, dislike you because of anything, your hair color, your whatever. I mean, I can make up stuff. But to live with yourself, to feel like a success, you have to succeed at being you.
Yeah. Be
the best version of yourself. Yeah. Don't let someone else decide what kind of person you're going to be. Just don't.
I have to write that down too. God, I love you.
Thank you.
Please tell me you'll come back. I know you're at your vacation home. Y'all, she has agreed to do this with us. She's at her summer home vacationing, and what a lovely gift and generous for you to do this. And in a few months, when you're back in Austin,
yes,
we'll do another one. And by the way, I'm coming to Austin at some point, and I hope to see John, and I hope to see you. So
yes, well, we'll have lunch, because that sounds like fun.
That does sound like
that's
fun.
One of my core values.
And so I know you've written several books, so I want people to look at that, and people can find you at patlove.com. Is that correct?
That's it.
Isn't that easy?
Yes.
Pat
so
at
easy.
patlove.com. And the next time, I got to talk more about your name being Love. I mean,
I know,
go
it's my real
figure.
name.
You had to
Dr. Love, it's my real name.
you had to be a great therapist with a name like that.
Uh, thank you, thank you. I try to live up to it. Thanks.
Well,
Thank you
listen,
so much.
thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
We'll see you soon.
bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everyone, we're going to take a short break and I'm going to come back, and you know what time it is. It's golden toolbox tool time. Be right back.
Have you tried CBD? If you haven't experienced the healing benefits of hemp and CBD, please call Frannies Pharmacy's Bud Tenders at 864-349-1018. They are your CBD experts and can recommend which products will serve your needs. So give them a ring today, because Deborah knows you deserve to feel better. FranniesPharmacyGreenville.com.
Hey, everyone, and welcome back. Wow, wasn't Dr. Love fun? We love me some Dr. Love. All right, well, as you can see, I still haven't found the right toolbox, but I do have the tool of the week for you. I do a lot of journaling, and I love questions because they seem to take me deeper. They seem to help me look at, as we were just talking about triggers and why I get triggered. And so the tool we're talking about this week that I'm going to offer y'all to use is about how we please others, how we think we need to please others. And it came to me when I was thinking about the whole pleasing thing, that how can we ever get to our real and authentic selves if we're always trying to please someone else? How do I know what I really like, what I really want, what my real values are if I'm always caught up in the pleasing process? Now, I think we try to please others for a lot of different reasons. I think we obviously try to please people at times for love, for approval, for security, for acceptance. And I'm just inviting you to write some down, some of the things, some of the ways that you know that you're pleasing, and how that's keeping you from being authentic. It also creates resentment too, because if you're just trying to please somebody else all the time, it will definitely create resentment in you. So I'm going to give you some examples of some that I've worked with. Some are just very light and some are a little bit extreme. But I wanted you to really get the feel for how this can help you get to core values, get to who am I as I'm going through divorce and as I'm going through these challenges. What's in there really, when I take away all the people pleasing, or as Oprah calls it, the disease to please. All right, so like when I started writing down how I please other people, a memory came up of years and years ago. I worked at a bank, and I was, at a pretty good level in the bank. However, I was the only woman at the table, basically, with a lot of powerful men. And so I remember thinking how I would please men. Now, I don't mean this in that kind of way. I mean how I would go over and above, in acknowledging or complimenting or, I don't know, whatever, trying to get them to like me so that I could be one of the guys. So that's an example. And I look back and I thought, gosh, I wish I'd just been me, But sometimes we think that's what we need to do. Sometimes, I've noticed, I'm trying to stop doing all this. Sometimes we please people with compliments so they'll like us, or, think we're a nice person or a good person. and by all means, I'm not talking about being mean or being ugly. I'm just wanting you to think about your behavior, what's driving it for the way we show up for other people. This was a hard one. I remember trying to please my family so that they would let me be alone with my sister when she was dying, because for whatever reason, they didn't want me to be alone with her. And that hurt really bad. Some of these are deep. You can look back and really see some things that have wounded you that just stay, and they don't go anywhere, unless you really work with them or get a really good therapist like Pat. This is a hard one, but I can remember, I had a really rough childhood, and I can remember trying to please my mother by not crying so that she would stop hitting me. Because if the more I cried, the more she hit. So that's pretty tough. That's pretty tough to hear. But again, these are the things that are coming up. These are really extreme. But sometimes we please in order to not be hurt or to survive, I guess. But that's not the way that it really should be. I remember one time, my ex-husband, he was getting ready to go on a trip across the world, and I was so sick, I thought I was going to die, and I remember pleasing him and saying, no, it's okay, you go ahead. Even though I didn't want him to. But again, I was, taking care of someone else's feelings. I was trying to please someone else. So I guess these are the things I'm asking you to, look at. I remember one time I was given blood, and the tube or whatever backed up, and I didn't want to say anything to the nurse because there were so many people giving, and it was so busy, and I didn't want to be an inconvenience. So that was my way of pleasing, just so she would think I wasn't bothering her. I hope these are making sense. And if they're not, please write me. Please comment. I remember not speaking up at my dad's funeral when I really, really wanted to. But I was pleasing my stepmother. And, so there was a bunch of stuff said about my dad that wasn't even true. These are things to think about. Why do we want to please? Why can't we be our authentic self? And, as Dr. Pat said, feel your feelings and do the right thing. Well, you can also be authentic and do the right thing. Because every time I leave the building, Elvis leaves the building, Deborah leaves the building, for me to go please someone else, that takes away from my authenticity, which is everything to me right now. And I'm really trying to figure out who I am, because I think I have been such a people pleaser my entire life. And when we do that, I think it ends up, we don't really know who we are. So, with that said, I'd really like to hear from you. I would love to hear what tools you're exploring, what you're using on your journey. And please write me. Please let me know what you think. Please let me know what you want to hear more about. And please let me know what tools you're using. Okay, so final thoughts for today. I've been looking at what's been really helping me lately. It's been another tough couple weeks. I know I've been saying that every time I come on. I must be in one of those, rough patches, 6 months out. And I don't know. It's been hard lately. It's been really hard. I hope I can get through the rest of this without crying. Um, but I've been driving and listening to loud music, and that's been helping. My dog has been tremendous, unconditional, loving support lately. And I've been really spending a lot of time alone and going inward to find out who this Deborah is, who she's becoming, what she's letting go of, different behaviors and pleasing. And I'm excited to find out, who I'm going to be on the other side of this. And I know many of you, I'd like to know that too. Where are you on your journey? And, how are you feeling on the other side of things? Yesterday was a really, really rough one. And when I laid down last night, it was funny because, Dr. Love was talking about when we lay down and we look at, were we able to hang on to our core values? I didn't ask myself that question, but I did just say, here, God, please take it all. And God said, yeah, I'll take it all. And I woke up this morning and I thought, okay, I got through another day, another challenge of divorce day, and there's still work to be done. Because how we always end the show is because I'm still here and you're still here. And I thank you so much for being on this journey with me. And this gives me reason to really move on and to do better and try harder. And thanks for showing up. And thank you to Pronk Studios for letting me come in here and share with you. So, till next time, we're still here.
I am here, I am here, I am here. After all my tears, I am here, facing all my fears. I'm alive and I'm alright. Yeah, I know I'm gonna be fine. I am here, been through hell and back. I am here, I'm stronger.